I'm not suggesting I know better than anybody. I'm here having read a lot of the reports written by the very same people that everybody talks about on all sides of this, and going back 10 years. I've read a lot of reports on this. And I would only say that when I really thought carefully, though, as a matter more of common sense than anything else, of whether an 8 or 10 lane roadway at grade with traffic signals optimized and trying to keep it moving so that we wouldn't make congestion much worse, whether that was really going to be an idyllic place to sit and have a drink on a Friday afternoon or any other day. I kind of came to the conclusion that, sort of like other fast-moving wide streets of its kind, like University Avenue, that wasn't too likely. And that what you could create, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I even explored with the officials whether if you took it from 8 lanes to 10, that this would, sort of allow you to address the congestion issue so that you could have, the best of all worlds, as it were. And, there were arguments made as to why that would become a completely pedestrian unfriendly street, because it's 10 lanes you have to cross instead of 8, which is already a challenge for pedestrians. And if you did other things that I even asked about, like further optimizing signals, taking out signals, putting in, what do we call it, grade separations, I mean, you would create there what I just described, which I think already this would be, which is in effect an at-grade or street-level expressway, a very fast-moving road that is not conducive to pedestrians particularly, nor is it conducive to kind of a peaceful afternoon under an umbrella. And so I'm saying if that's what you get, and you also get with that significantly increased congestion, because it just stands to reason if the Parkway just comes down south and comes to sort of virtually an end at this new boulevard that was proposed, you're going to get congestion. Then I'd say I just don't think we can do that in our city right now. I don't think it makes sense. I don't think it's the right thing to do.
Because you're leaving the structure, and you're adding some ramps to it, but the hybrid option basically leaves up what is up right now. Do you contemplate being able to develop that land with that structure remaining in place, which is what the remove option advocates people point to, that you free up all this land to develop?
The adjustments to ramps and various other things related to the eastern portion of the Gardiner will substantially liberate the lands, portions of the lands that are presently not developable if you left the Gardiner exactly as is. And so it will have the effect of allowing for the development of the Unilever lands, and the exact alignment of those ramps and so on will, I think, allow for the development of other lands as well beyond the Unilever lands, and I think that will allow us to achieve the economic potential. I'm saying that if you have what some might call the downside, obviously, of an elevated expressway with what they would call space underneath it goes to waste or acts as a separation, let's bring it to life. And I'm not making that up. It's not blue skying. I'm looking at cities, Shanghai, Rio de Janeiro, Philadelphia, Paris has done it with an old viaduct. And there's a long list of cities that have said, let's view this as an opportunity and make it exciting and make it creative space and make it space like Underpass Park and like the Fort York Visitor Center and many other things in between. And that's what I would intend to do.
But many of those same cities are taking out expressways. Paris is turning its Pompidou Expressway into a park. Philly is looking at taking an expressway. So aren't you cherry-picking the examples of these cities for the ones that support your argument?
I'm simply saying that there are instances in which when you have elevated expressways, and you can have them for a variety of reasons that have to do with the economy and with keeping the city vibrant and healthy, with keeping traffic congestion from strangling a city, to a very bad state, that you can leave them up, or in this case, move one slightly and still have an elevated expressway and still have life. I recognize there are cities taking down elevated expressways, and there are cities that aren't taking them down. And I'm just saying, in this case, I've come to the conclusion, based on common sense, based on the reading of a lot of the reports, based on listening to everybody that I could, that the best option, none of them being perfect, the best option is one that involves doing the hybrid alteration to the Gardiner Expressway and leaving in place a connection between the Parkway and the Gardiner.
Two questions.
Cynthia, I heard you asking something. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Dave. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
The staff report indicates a pretty minor delay for the teardown, a couple of minutes. It sounds going to be about comparable to the delay that hit commuters from the beaches in the teardown of the East Gardiner, which doesn't seem to have caused people a lot of problems and complaints in the wake of it. What is it that is there something that persuades you that the staff numbers on this are wrong? That in fact the delay might be much longer than that?
Well, Dave, it's not so much that I'm convinced the staff numbers are wrong, but I guess I've seen other numbers, and the staff numbers, first of all, are based on an assumption that all of the transit You know, every piece of transit was built, and so they're assuming that's true from day one. And we already know, no matter how good I am at getting SmartTrack done on time, for example, it's not going to be done, you know, at the moment you tear this down. Well, actually, it might be close, but I mean, even so, you won't have very much of the new transit we've talked about. Waterfront LRT, for example, not even, you know, it's not even something we're underway with yet. We should get underway with it, but we're not yet. The downtown relief line we know is 15 years away. So that's number one. Number two, there were other numbers that came out done by reputable organizations, including the one that came out last week from the U of T, saying no, in fact, if you looked at you know, depending on how you calibrated the time it was going to take for people to cross the street and so on, whether you did a pedestrian-friendly or a traffic-friendly model and other kinds of things like that, that it could be 10 minutes. And so I picked a number in between today and said, okay, let's pick 5. Since you mentioned 2, the U of T report said 10, let's pick 5. And, you know, people will sort of say, well, that's a trivial sort of number in people's lives. People tell me not so. I mean, you know, when they got 20 minutes back, when we opened the lanes of the Gardiner, I got these notes, and lots of them, and had many people speak to me and say that was valuable time in their life. I don't find it trivial when people say they lose 10 or 15 minutes, you know, sometimes out of their day, or 10 or 15 minutes each way. Not at all. I think people are saying when it comes to time with their families, when it comes to time at work, when it comes to the productivity of business and lost jobs, that I think people want every minute back they can get, and they certainly don't want me making decisions to take time away from them. I will mention one thing just as a matter of kind of trivial interest. When at Civic Action we did a very huge online survey of what people would do if they had, I think, what were we saying, 32 minutes back in their life? The number one thing they said they would do is sleep. So I find that interesting just because people are saying, I think, what's true. They're giving up sleep in their life because they have to get up early because of the traffic. And I'd say if I can give them back 10 more minutes of sleep, how do you feel on a day when you're tired and you get 10 more minutes? You feel good.
What's the time frame? What's the time frame? When do you want it starting to be turned into the hybrid? Like,
well, I think the time frame has always been about the same no matter which of these. I think that by the time you get all the work done that has to be done, the construction period was, I think, sometime around 2020. And so, you know, obviously from my standpoint, I think you want to get on with doing these things as fast as you can, both because it'll minimize the amount you spend on maintaining the old part of the garden that will be sort of in some way altered or replaced, and it also just means you can sort of get on with developing the lands and doing all those things. So as soon as possible, but the time frames are set out in the city report, and I don't take any issue with those. They are what they are. And the construction period, back to the question that I was asked earlier on, the construction period is about the same for both. I think it's 6 years, but there's considerably less traffic disruption caused by the construction for the hybrid option as opposed to the remove option. I'll take one more.
Aside from the commute times themselves, obviously SmartTrack is one of your first priorities. That was the preference of Great Gulf, was to free up the Unilever lands, perhaps make a SmartTrack stop. They prefer the hybrid option as well. How much does that play into your decision?
The decision is much more complex than the wishes of any particular landowner. I've said very clearly that the Unilever lands and other lands that are down there will be made more developable, if that's a word, by this decision. But it would have been the case that they would be more developable as a result of the remove option as well. And so in that case, I'm saying that we get that benefit, which is the development that will come, and I'm very hopeful it will include a SmartTrack station in the Unilever development. I think it'll be a whole new transit hub for the city, not just a SmartTrack station. But having said that, there are many other developments, other benefits that flow from this recommendation that I would make as one member of council and as the mayor, namely, we won't increase congestion. We will have the opportunity, I think, to do some very exciting things that I'm committed to doing as mayor, and to hopefully leading the council to do to create new, vibrant space where activities don't exist at the moment. So I think overall this is the best and most sensible thing to do. I thank you very much.